Hello, everyone. I'm Bernardo Prechet. I'm a physician and founder of Medicina. And this is a special edition of our podcast, The Future of Medicine. And I'm really excited about today's guest. We have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Jag Singh, the author of the bestseller Future of Healthcare. Jag, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernardo. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Oh, thank you. And I was taking a look at your history, and you are a cardiologist, right? And I would like to start our podcast asking you, how do you think the cardiology is going to change with everything that's going on with AI and this new tech device?
Absolutely. So that I can talk about that for 2 hours.
Okay, so
But I think a lot of things are going to change. I think right from just the diagnosing of disease, the prediction of disease, the preventative strategies of disease, and even the intervention approaches, they're all going to be impacted by sensor-based approaches as well as artificial intelligence. I can elaborate on those if you need me to, but I think as a consequence of this, I think even the cardiovascular workforce is going to change. I think many of the jobs that general cardiologists do could be done by advanced care nurse practitioners armed with good artificial intelligence algorithms. So I think it's going to move care upstream, where everybody is going to work at the highest level of their license. I think general cardiology will get contracted and you'll have a large number of specialists, and the generalist care will be actually administered with the help of some general cardiologists, but I think a lot of advanced care nurse practitioners. So there's going to be this evolution of the workforce. And then obviously, I think how you manage care is also going to change. I think in the future, when I say future, I'm saying 5 to 10 years from now, so it's not too far away.
Things are changing quickly, right?
Very quickly. I think a lot of data will be continuous, and then using AI to manage our patients with continuous data and predict disease is going to become a really important part of the way we practice medicine.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. And are you still seeing patients right today? And do you see any impact of this new technology today in your daily practice?
Absolutely. So I do see patients. I actually operate 3 days a week. I do procedures. I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist, and I see patients 1 full day a week. So there are many places that this technology has already taken place. So as an electrophysiologist, I implant devices in patients, and these devices have sensors. These sensors can be monitored remotely, and therefore I'm already monitoring a lot of patients remotely using narrow forms of artificial intelligence and sensor-based approaches. So that's already there. But that remote care strategy is expanding now. It's expanding beyond cardiology, but that's a place that I think patients are already impacted by it. But now we have at Mass General Hospital, where I work in Boston, we are using in an experimental stage, and I think this will get formally a part of our clinical routine in the next 6 months or so. We are using AI to generate our notes. So I can talk to my patient.
That's perfect.
I'm just having a casual conversation with my patient, and AI is actually generating that into a proper clinic note that goes into the electronic medical record.
Keyboard free, right?
Keyboard free. It's called keyboard liberation, right?
Yeah.
And it really allows you to talk to your patient, interact with them, look them straight in the eye.
Yeah, that's so important.
Right. And that's happening. And we're also using AI now to summarize the chart, because sometimes if you have to spend time going through the entire chart can take several hours, right? But you can now use AI to summarize the clinical course of your particular cardiovascular issue very quickly at the touch of a button, which makes life considerably easier. So that, again, is also impacting or helping the physician burnout element.
Yeah,
which
that's
I
the
think is
point.
a big issue.
We see a lot of data about burnout and mental issues among physicians. And I think that technology can help us to, relieve the pressure on it, right? You're not worried about the many administrative tasks that you might do in the hospital. You're worried about how you can make the life of the patient better, right?
Right. No, Bernard, you're absolutely right. I think there are two parts to technology,
Yeah.
right? I think one is it can certainly aid your ability to give good care. It can free up time so you can actually spend more time talking to your patients, so you actually get to know them and you feel like a clinician, and reduces the burnout component. But too much of technology can also isolate you.
Yeah.
It can, and that's where that can again cause some burnout. One of the downstream impacts of this AI, advantages could be that if it allows you to see patients much faster, administration and leadership might ask you to see more patients. So that free time you have may actually get compressed into trying to become more efficient and effective, which might then again cause burnout. So it's
I didn't see that perspective.
it's
That's
a
really
vicious
good
cycle.
point.
I think the leadership in any institution or organization needs to be paying attention to mental health issues, which I think are, as we know, a big deal in medical students, in residents, as well as in established clinicians.
And it's very clear for us the rising cost of healthcare. So maybe the institutions, we're gonna pressure doctors to, since you got AI on your side right now, I don't want you to see 5 patients. I want you to see 10, 15, and there you go.
Right. Yeah, no, I can see that happening. And that's why I think we have to build in, efforts like remote monitoring, AI-based strategies that can really reduce the burnout, allow patients to self-manage themselves too.
Yeah.
Right. I think one of the big things is I always talk about this is MYOD, is manage your own disease. And I think if you can arm patients with, information about from their sensors, what their health status is, and at the same time use generative AI with ChatGPT and the like to give them advice that is overread by a clinician, so it becomes a little faster, the feedback loop becomes a little compressed. I think you can actually provide much better care and reduce the burnout and be more personalized in the way you actually look after patients.
And bringing more care to their home, to their house, right?
Right. I think, you touched on a really important point. I think most hospitals are trying to expand their institutions into the homes of people. Because now you can claim the asset of somebody's home as a part of your hospital, right? It's good business. But at the same time, I think as a patient, if you or I were ever a patient, we'd love to be at home and be looked after in our own house rather than stay in an artificial environment in the hospital. So I think these sensor-based approaches and AI-based strategies will allow that and enable that over the coming years.
And we were talking about before the show starts about your daughter that is taking medical school, and I would like to start about this topic asking one question. How do you see the generation gap between my generation, your generation, and your daughter's generation in relation to the medicine? How different is their relation with our relation and past generations?
Totally. So I think every generation has a different outlook to medicine, right? I call this in my book the skipped generation effect, and what I mean is that the clinician who is now used to digital tools can use digital tools, but the senior citizens that the clinician is looking after are not used to those digital tools. So there's this gap in even the way care is received and in the way care is delivered. Now, I think both sides, when I say both sides, that is either side of the generations, really need to understand that, everybody has been exposed to different environments and make allowances and adapt to the needs of the other generation. I do feel that this current generation has become more an information gathering generation.
Yeah, totally.
The smartest person is the one who can find the information fastest on their smartphone, right? You don't have to retain information like you needed to in the past when, I was graduating, and I'm sure to some extent even when you were graduating,
Yeah.
that, retaining that information and then being able to
Memorize
it and vomit it out as needed when you need it. I still think that's going to be important though. Even though the medical student generation of today may think it's not important. I think critical thinking is going to be absolutely necessary as we manage patients because, patients have different requirements. It's not just, establishing a diagnosis and that's it. I think it's adapting to the whole disease process. And I think that's where I think the educational components of the modern day medical students really needs to not only enable that critical thinking, but allow them to use AI and allow them to use additional, sensor-based approaches to really perfect the game of providing personalized medicine.
Yeah. And you mentioned about critical thinking and critical reasoning thing. Uh, what are the top three skills for this new generation of doctors facing this different tech challenge of technology?
So, can I say something that may not sound very medicine? I would say they need to be collaborative, they need to be compassionate, and they need to have high integrity.
There you go.
All right.
Things never change, right?
Things never change. I think it is so important that if you want to be a clinician physician and look after patients with the highest level of your, inner persona, maintaining at least three of these many other characteristics, I think is really important.
Yeah. And in our context here in Brazil, we are seeing a lot of young doctors looking for alternative paths in medicine. They want to see patients, but they don't want to see patients every day. They want to create a business. They want to be an influencer or something like this. Is that happening in US as well?
It is. It is. And I think some of it is happening organically because times change, people's interests change. Some people do it because they're looking for having a higher impact in a shorter period of time. I think it's a good thing when people diversify. It exposes many parts of medicine that require to be remodeled and rechanged. Not everything is good. Not every form of diversification is
good. I want
to
talk about residence programs here.
Exactly. So I think social media and some of these diversification strategies can be huge distractions from learning. And I think can actually add to the mental health issues, right? I mean, you see, you don't even have to be a medical student to start having mental health issues. You can have them as a teenager because social media really creates this isolationism and problems that are oftentimes interpersonal that would never have existed if there was no social media aspect to it. So I think, there are many facets to discuss out here and happy to delve into any more in detail as you want me to.
Yeah, of course. I want to talk about the residence programs because in Brazil, young doctors struggle a lot with them because of the amount of hours, the amount of work, the amount of pressure. How do you see how we can do this better? How we can create a new generation of specialized doctors, well-trained doctors, but not, killing their mental health.
Totally. And this may sound a little cheesy, but I think a lot depends on leadership.
Oh, there you go.
A lot depends on the faculty looking after the residents. I think what happens oftentimes, at least happened in my generation, is that you say, hey, I learned it this way. I had to struggle. So you're going to struggle too.
Yeah, that's the same here.
Right? I think we need to step out of that. If things were not right, we have to break that. If things were not right the way we were taught, because I was taught through some degree of humiliation, right? You're humiliated by your seniors, and then you learn. And oftentimes you stop even asking questions because you think you might
You're afraid.
You're afraid to ask questions because you might get ridiculed. So when I teach students, I never, ever put them on the spot. Sometimes I even give them the answer before they try to give the answer because I don't want them to feel that same extent of ridicule that I felt at some point in time. Now, I'm not saying that's the mantra, but what I want to say is that leadership from the faculty and above the faculty really needs to create the right culture. Because there are some residency programs, even when you work hard, they do really well
Yeah, of
because
course.
it's the culture of how they're respected, how they're made to feel like a part of the family. Oftentimes, residents feel that they're just another spoke in the wheel, and they're being taken for granted, and they become anonymous. They're anonymous in their little Ferris wheel running every day and feel that they're not noticed. Nobody gives them their importance. That needs to change. I think we need to make medicine not just personalized for our patients, but make medicine personalized even for our residents.
Oh, that's really, really good. And I totally agree with you. You mentioned about medical education. We are seeing a lot of change in attention span, social media, the way we study, the way we consume information. How do you think medical universities are going to adapt to this context?
Yeah, no, I think they will have to adapt. The consumption of information is a challenge, right? Because you have, I don't know how many thousands of papers being delivered into the PubMed on a daily basis. And for us to keep up to speed, even in our own specialties, is impossible. And I think we're going to have some AI-based strategies to help curate that literature for us in an order of priority, in an order of what appears to be, have the highest level of veracity, and then deliver that data to us to then consume and to some extent retain. Because I think as clinicians, we can't depend on AI-based strategies alone. We have to be able to parse because we know that ChatGPT and other AI-based approaches confabulate, right? They
Yeah, of
hallucinate.
course.
They can oftentimes misinform you and send you down a path that was not the right path. And I
You
think
still have to do your homework, right?
exactly. And I think that's the part of the consumption I think will still probably need to stay, but it'll get modified over time.
Yeah. If you were the Harvard Medical School dean and you could add only one subject to the curriculum, what subject would you add?
That's a really interesting question. Let me add two.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think a lot of medicine is becoming virtual, right? Remote care is becoming virtual, and I think we still we have lectures on bedside manners. I think we need to have lectures and training on website manners. How do you interact and interface with patients remotely and still make them feel like you care? That's where the tone of your voice, your movements of your hands and sensor-based approaches. So I think the whole virtual care teaching strategy needs to change. That's one. And second, I think you certainly need to add AI, artificial intelligence, how it needs to be integrated into medicine, not just for consumption of information, but for predictive analytics, and predicting and preventing disease in the future.
Yeah, and doctors shouldn't be afraid of this new technology. They should embrace it and leverage them in their own practice because there's a lot of advantage in that.
100%, 100%. People say AI should not be called artificial intelligence. They should call it assistive intelligence or augmented intelligence, or additive intelligence. So I think and that's probably the way to look at it. I think the moment we start thinking about artificial intelligence, we look at it as, an inorganic form of life that might take over us. I think we need to really be fairly thoughtful in how we implement it and incorporate it into our daily lives.
Yeah, and in a few minutes, you're gonna provide us an incredible keynote speak. And which message would you like to stay with us here in Brazil?
I would say I'll be closing my keynote speech with the importance of maintaining the human touch alongside the digital touch. There's a lovely saying from Francis Peabody who says that the secret of the care of the patient lies in caring for the patient. And
That's amazing.
And I think whatever you do, that's something you need to really keep close to your heart, because that's the only way you can really continue to really care for your patients and look after them.
You're never gonna be able to replace that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, such amazing quote, Jag. And I would like to ask you another thing, a curiosity for me. Uh, which AI tools do you use in your daily basis?
So, we're beginning to use, as I said, ChatGPT and other, large language models that have been homegrown within Mass General Hospital for generating the AI notes out there. Much of the AI work I do is all investigational, and I'll be showing some of that work during the talk.
Oh, that's nice.
And I think, the issue with AI in current practice is that it needs to be generalizable. And much of the work we do is so focused on the data sets that are looking after our patients. So I think before it becomes common play, we need to make sure that the data sets are representative of the society as a large. And I think those things are happening as we speak.
Yeah, and we're talking about a lot of how it's going to impact the medicine, but how do you think the impact is going to be on the patient side? Which improvement can you see from 10 years from now in their patient's life?
Absolutely. So I think there's going to be a significant change in the way patients approach healthcare. I think patients will become a lot more literate because education is getting democratized. They will have more data about their own health and wellness. And I think they will put into play preventative strategies on their own. And I think some of those patients will be incentivized to actually look after themselves and manage their own diseases. So it's going to be a work in progress, but it's going to be really interesting as all of this unfolds.
Yeah, and before the show, we were talking about your daughter experience in entrepreneurship. How do you think AI can help us in creating new things, creating new business in medical field right now?
So there are many facets to it. So my daughter was, when she graduated from Berkeley, she started a company called PDEd, which was providing education to pediatric patients because
Oh,
she felt it was an unmet need that when parents would go with their children to the doctor would talk to the parents, and the kids would sit on the side and not really understand
no,
what
that's
was
such a
going
great
on.
point.
So what she did was she created a Khan Academy equivalent situation where you created videos for children to understand their disease process and what was going to happen to them in the hospital if they were going to have a procedure or not.
Oh, that's so
Um,
nice.
so she got inspired by that and eventually divested the company and then moved on and is doing med school right now. She's doing her MD, MBA. And I think her plans are probably going to be in the same arena as how do you kind of advance education within medicine. But I think more importantly to your question, I think there are many facets where AI can intersect with medicine. I think, as I said at the outset, very from the balcony, because I won't be able to get into the details, but I think really enhancing the diagnosis, enhancing the predictive ability of diseases, using deep learning algorithms to look at, the ECG and predict what's going to happen to them in the future. Besides that, I think having AI algorithms that can actually make sensor-based approaches a part of the workflow of daily care so that it can be integrated and translate into better clinical outcomes is going to be seminal to really making healthcare move forward.
Yeah, and when you start to look at all the possibilities in medicine, you start to think about, should I still see patients? Should I still keep doing this? Should I go 100% on creating a company, go 100% on being an author, being a speaker? How was your decision about this?
So, I was one of those silly people who wanted a piece of everything. So I do consult for about 20 different companies. I'm on several advisory boards, but I see patients and I operate 3 days a week. Um, I felt that whatever I'm able to do on the entrepreneurial side and the advisory side, my clinical experience validates me. People listen to me, if I may say so, because they feel that I'm talking about things that I actually do and
You
know.
have skin in the game,
I
right?
have skin in the game. I'm not making things up, or I'm not showing somebody else's slides or somebody else's pictures from the internet. I'm showing stuff that I'm actually engaged in, and it allows me to think better. So, but I think everybody has their own path. I think if some folks have a higher level of entrepreneurial skills, they should go for that. I don't think I have that. And I knew that that was a deficiency in myself, and I decided not to pursue it for a reason. Also, at the same time, when you shift gears, you land up sometimes becoming a one-trick pony. You This is what it
Yeah.
is for the rest of your life. So I think being actively engaged in medicine as a practitioner allowed me to be a little more versatile and have the advantage of being in education like we are here today, being involved in research, as well as being an administrative leader and practicing clinical
You can
medicine.
have the best of all of these worlds, right?
And do nothing well, but have the best of
No,
all of them.
you're doing well. You're doing well. But there's an important thing here that you mentioned. Uh, Self-awareness, right? You have to know yourself. You don't have to rule yourself by what other people are doing. You have to, understand yourself so you can make better decisions, right?
Right. Absolutely, Bernardo. And I think that's where you touched on this right at the beginning. I think mentorship is really important
Oh, yeah.
because you can be self-aware, but if you're not surrounded by the right people, you're never going to be able to take that right degree of risk and step out of your comfort zone and say, I can do that. And I think mentorship really is not just about clinical knowledge or about research. I think it's about enhancing that emotional quotient. It's about enhancing that circle of influence. It's about enhancing that understanding of self-awareness and work-life balance that I think more senior clinicians can give their residents and doctors to kind of residents and fellows to say, I'm going to sidestep out here.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Here in Afya, we have a lot of mentoring programs using technology, and we truly believe that with everything that's going on, we can, in the first time in the history, maybe we can scale mentoring for everyone. You can have a mentor on your side, training on the best and most updated technical knowledge, giving you advice at 24/7.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, exactly. And we are running out of time, unfortunately, but I would like to thank you so much for being here in the podcast, in the keynote speaking. And if you could leave us a message here for everyone that's hearing us and watching us on YouTube, Spotify, and everything, what message that would be?
I would say, keep working hard, and find that dream. And sometimes that dream may not be the right dream, but you have to keep exploring. And I think keep looking for opportunities. And when you get an opportunity, it may not be the right opportunity, but make the most of that because if you do well with that opportunity, it'll open up other doors for you.
Yeah.
So I would say go out there and swing the bat and hopefully it'll connect.
Amazing, Jag. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching us, and stay tuned for the next episodes.
Thanks, Bernardo.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.